Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of former World Cruiserweight Champion and star of That Boxing Show, Johnny Nelson, MBE. Johnny, great to see you. I know we've got a big card to discuss, but I just wanted to focus on yourself. You stayed loyal to Sky Sports. You're very good at what you do. I'm sure there have been many suitors who want to poach you and bring you over to other platforms. Why was it something for you to stay with Sky Sports and wait for them to return to the sport and take the place that you had before?
I think Sky just went back to probably rejig their game plan and move with the times. And you see with such a show. And I remember when women started boxing, certain promoters said, I don't want any of that. And you've got to move with the times. I suppose it's like the newspapers now. Most newspapers are going bankrupt because they didn't want to move with the times. And so Sky are forever evolving, forever actually getting on the curb, and that's exactly what they needed to do. So that was never in doubt. And listen, it's the pyramid of life. You know, someday somebody will take over from me. X, Y, Z. That's how life moves on. So I'm not too precious about that. I'm very fortunate to be in a position working with Sky, but I work, all over the place. I still love the sport. The last few months I've been in a great position to be a fan, and it's been pretty cool.
Have Sky lost any footing in the time that they've been out? DAZN obviously been pushing a lot.
You know what? DAZN are doing a brilliant job. DAZN are putting some great fights on. But there's one thing the one thing you can't buy, borrow, pretend to have is the experience. And Sky have the experience and the years of being there. Whatever they get involved in, for a fact they're going to do it good. I'll give you an example. Wilder or Chisora. When I thought that was going to Sky initially, I thought that's going to do well, that is. I think they're only going to do a great job of it, but I don't think they'll do a better job than what Sky have done in promoting it. But I still think it's a great show. And the DAZN will be there eventually, but they're just still young, relatively young in the game. But they're doing a great job.
What about Caroline Dubois, who's brought a different side to her? We usually see the sweet side, but she's got some savage words for Terry Harper. She seems to really want to bite at her.
Big changes in Caroline's life. She was with Boxer. She's no longer with Boxer now. She moved over to MVP. She's 25 years old. She's like a bully that knows she can fight. And I don't think she cares if you love her all over. I don't think she's bothered. And I rate her massively. And so now I think she's done in my opinion, I think she's done the right move for her career. And most female fighters have now seen a platform that will be able to showcase their talents and what they're about. So don't be surprised if more fighters migrate over to MVP, because love him all over, and Jake Paul's giving them a great opportunity.
What about the departing Ben Shalom? Are there some pitfalls that you'd be telling MVP Jake Paul not to fall under that maybe Ben did?
Listen, I don't know who captains the ship in boxer. I don't know who captains the ship in MVP. Yeah, you hopefully learn by other people's mistakes, and are there mistakes with Shalom? You don't know. We'll see. He's still relatively new kid on the block. Well, sorry, MVP is. So he's still got to learn his job, but you can only have so much experience to say, well, when's the penny going to drop? So I'm quite sure time will tell that story.
There was actually an explosive conversation that happened at TalkSport Towers involving Deontay Wilder and Simon Jordan. Simon wouldn't take no for an answer when Deontay didn't want to discuss Tyson Fury and his allegations surrounding cheating and white supremacy in the sport. There's two big allegations to make from Deontay. What do you think about that whole confrontation and who was in the right, essentially?
Well, Deontay said, look, I don't want to talk about that. Simon pressured it and pushed it. That's what he did. And I've got to give it Simon. He did what most reporters don't do. They'll have to do uncomfortable questions for fear of the wrath, and that's exactly what he did get. In regards to Deontay's reaction, us here will think, why is he acting like that? This guy's from the Deep South. To be a black man in America, growing up in the Deep South, you see racism, you see injustice, you see wrongs, and it's so in your face. And you say, I'm to your father, it's to your grandfather, and so on and so on. In Black America, you're the 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th generation black. So that's where they are. That's their home. So when a man's giving you a hard time, telling you get out of our country, it's like, where you going? You speak to a black man here in the UK. You ask me. My parents are from Jamaica. We're probably 3rd, 4th generation black here. So we're still in connection with our our heritage, our roots. Whereas in America, if you're a young man like Deontay Wilder, growing up in such a state of division, which still exists to this day, you know, you come over to England, you think everywhere's like America, but it's not. Everybody's attitude's like America, but it's not. And so I can understand where Deontay was coming from, because he's in a country where he's thinking, it's like America, it ain't like America. Where Simon came from, Simon tried to do his job as a journalist and ask questions and push and ask those questions. Simon's always been that guy. He might have shit himself doing it, but that's what you guys should do. If someone asks you a question, question the answer and keep pushing it. Deontay was talking about, you know, when he got onto it, he got emotional when he was talking about the Tyson Fury situation. Now, as far as Wilder's concerned, Tyson Fury cheated. Now, for whatever evidence he's got to convince him that's the case, he believes that we don't see the evidence. We don't see what that's about. So you can't blame this young man for acting the way he's acting, because if he knows something and we don't, then you can understand why he's acting the way he's acting. And so then I saw a piece from Tyson, you know, saying, look, you know, I'm going to pray for him. You know, this, you know, he's got issues, which is, you know, it's nice. It's kind. If it's slanderous, as Deontay says, sue me, because I want that day in court when I show you what I see. So I think that story's not over yet. And so with Deontay Wilder, you know, he has his reasons, you know, but you've got to understand where he's coming from, why he reacted the way he reacted. I know Simon said don't bring no black-white thing into it, but Sam's got to understand where this guy's from, what this guy's used to, what he's seen as a young man growing up, you know. But for Deontay, he's got to understand this ain't America. You know, things are very different here. Not completely different, because it still exists. Things are very different here.
Is that a conversation that needs to happen, right or wrongly? But this presentation from Deontay that Tyson Fury cheated in his merits for thinking that?
Yeah, but as I said, if he believes that, and he says he has evidence for that, then you can understand him shouting and screaming because nobody else sees it. So unless he shows it, unless he lets people know about it, then you say, I get it. So right now, he looks like a raving madman, trying to pick excuses out. You know, but unless you have the same evidence he has, then you'll see where he's coming from.
What do you think about that fight with Derek Chisora? Who do you think will win that fight?
I think it's a good fight. I think if it's 3 years ago, and I said, 3 years ago when he talked about it, I said, Derek, you need to back in, you're going to get hurt. Deontay Wilder's not the fight he was, especially going off the last couple of fights he's had. So therefore, this is the fight that I'm not as worried for Derek, and I think he can win. Because Deontay Wilder, the danger of Deontay is no longer there.
I want to ask you about Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, specifically the instructions that Teofimo Lopez Sr. was giving to Junior in the corner. A lot of people felt that those instructions were lacking and didn't actually hold any actual instructions in them. Did you hear them? Were they lacking?
I heard them, and that was a father getting emotionally involved in his son, you know, and using emotion rather than logic, than what you worked for. And this is what our sport's about. If you get emotionally invested, I've got you. You're mine. I'm living rent-free in your head. And it looked like Shakur was living rent-free in his dad's head because all common sense had just chipped out the window. I think Shakur Stevenson's jab was terrific. It was outstanding. His boxing IQ right there. He made it look easy and simple, which wasn't on paper an easy fight. And then straight after that fight, what did he do? He gave props to Conor Ben by calling Conor Ben out. My message to Conor Ben is this: Conor, if this man's calling you out, he needs you more than you need him. So the rehydration clause, say, no. If you want to come to me, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at. If you really want that, because he saw what happened to Chris Jr. when Chris Jr. did that to his body. So Conor's no fool. Conor knows what he's capable of doing. So Conor, I thought it was proper props. He's in a position where, you know what, they call him out the other side of the Atlantic. So there's so many things out there for him.
Word in the works is that Fabio Wally is going to take on Daniel Dubois. What do you think of that fight? And also Daniel returning to Don Charles.
I think that's a lovely fight. I think it's a lovely fight. I think it's a fight that, like, you know what, I didn't even think about that. And that could be anybody's. Him returns to Don Charles. I think with him returning to Don Charles, I think he's very kind and humble of Don Charles and practical. He's still got to get paid. I do believe if someone leaves you once, he can leave you again. And I'd have been hurt and heartbroken if I was Don Charles. But this is business. So Jimmy Tibbs, when he was a Tibbs, I thought, maybe that happened with Tibbs because Tibbs is like saying, no.
Sims.
Sims, maybe thinking, no, this don't really mind you. This is how it works. If you can't abide by the rules, stay outside. So that's why I could see Don is probably the only person that's willing to accept that kind of behaviour.
I spoke to Donny. He said, look, he's not a yes man, but there are types of ways that you deal with people to make things work. Has he got to give something away to keep the camp happy, i.e. his dad happy, Stan?
I understand that, but it's not about his dad. His dad's not getting in the ring, getting his head bashed in. His dad's not getting knocked out. His dad's not getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning to go for a run and sparring 20 rounds a day. So your focus and concentration should be on your fighter. That's your responsibility, not the dad, not his mates, not anybody else. That's your focus, your responsibility, regardless. So I get it. I get the dad is very is very involved in regards to motivating his son, but there needs to be lines drawn in regards to that. And listen, his dad's learning on the job as well. But that comment, I don't agree with.
In what way?
I don't agree with in regards to having to figure out how to work with people. There's a line to be drawn. In our gym, Brendan would say, parents, I don't care who you are, out. Because when you start letting the parents in, you've got a problem. You're not just negotiating to try and get the best out of one individual. You're trying to please the father or the mother, as well as please the child as well. And when your parents around, you act like a child. You're not gonna be responsible for who you are and what you do. So you don't train parents out. You ain't coming at you. And that's fact. That's how it has to work. If Stanley's got to motivate his son, do it at home. Do it at home. You don't need to be involved in that side of it. That's just my opinion.
Educate me on this if you can, but did Brendan ever deal with someone that was like Daniel, who's obviously clearly different to you and I? Did you ever?
Without a doubt. There are millions of Daniels in our gym, trust me. Brendan was an unbelievable circus master. And you can't be saying to get in the ring. Remember, you're dealing with so many different characters. And Brendan was genius at that. But the one thing he knew was I don't train parents. This is my job. Let me deal with it my way. If you don't want me to test that, then take him somewhere else.
Very final thing, Johnny. Anthony Joshua put out a statement, obviously, regarding the tragic loss of his two friends, Sinnott and Latz. He held his emotion back, but couldn't during that statement. He also said that he doesn't fear death, and touchingly, he said, I know that I've got two of my friends waiting for me on the other side. Alexander Usyk has since spoken to him and said that he feels that he'll return to the ring. What do you think of that statement? What do you think about the potential of AJ returning?
You know what? I think it was very brave, humble, loving from Anthony Joshua. Brave because I couldn't have done it. When I lost my mum, I couldn't speak. There's no way I'd be able to say something because emotionally this is fresh. And as you sat there in front of a camera for you lot, for everybody to try and justify and explain himself because everybody's microanalyzing him, speak for the family, and speak for everybody else to say, you know what, give us peace. This is the situation. This is what I've lost. I think he was so brave. I couldn't have done it. And any person that saw that, if they understand, they'd understand how hard that was. And I'll give him maximum props and respect for that. I think his words in regards to that, when you're touched by death, it makes you look at life very, very differently. It makes you look at situation in life just in a completely different way. So I understand his comment in regards to saying, I'm not scared of death. I get that. And he's got people waiting for him. He believes that in his heart and soul. And you will do when you've lost someone. In regards to Usyk saying he'll probably fight again, he probably will do. How will it have affected him, his heart, his desire, and his motivation? We don't know until the first bell goes.
I appreciate those words. Thanks for your time. Thanks for speaking to Seconds Out, sir. Good man.